Well, I might tie these videos together if I can conveniently, but if I can't, yes, this is part two. I don't know where I left off, but I left off at the part where he says absolutely nothing. He says, I clearly violate conservation, and then he says, I have this notion that conservation means all arrows go in and I don't kill any of them, destroy any of them, I don't ruin any of their directionality or what it means to be an arrow leaving or going in a direction. Somehow he says I break that with something in my theory, and I don't. There's no conservation violation.
Well, the number of quantons is a conserved quantity in Momentum's theory, but that doesn't make momentum as a modern physics concept.
Okay, as a modern physics concept, because they don't understand what momentum is, just as the light experiments demonstrate. You don't understand what momentum is. That if a photon is traveling this way, you can't give it a vector this way and this way and that way and that way. It's not a baseball. You can't combine velocities and get a net velocity and all that kind of crap. Yeah, they don't do that, frankly. All right, they exchange direction incompletely. That's all they can do. They can completely exchange direction. No violation of anything called momentum anyway. So your whole nonsensical argument that somewhere in my theory momentum, that is directionality, is even destroyed, it's not. Because it's exchanged, idiot. This, okay, goes this way, and the thing going this way goes that way. Where's a conservation violation, retard? Where's momentum not conserved, retard?
As a calculable, a measurable thing, it doesn't map. So because no quantons disappear, it doesn't guarantee that it doesn't break conservation of momentum.
Well, again, you haven't proven any violation of conservation of momentum, where anywhere in my theory, this somehow doesn't have this coming out of it. And this doesn't somehow have a this coming out of it. Because it does. There is no going this way magically or magically going some other way. They have to exchange. Complete exchanges. Not false exchanges, complete exchanges. Red one goes the direction the black one was going. Black one goes the direction the red one was going. No conservation violation. So again, this lie that there's some sort of trickery going on or some sort of magical thing going on where I make something go some direction that isn't the sum of the directions in the equation. The sums are this, and that's what comes out. It's this, something going this way, something going that way, one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is equals something going this way, something going that way. And again, he'll just emphatically say there's a violation of momentum there by our modern physics. No, you can't make a violation of physics by any rational, logical, factual argument. You can only do it by being an arrogant, pontificating liar.
And as I've explained previously, the conservation laws come from pure mathematical reason based upon such.
Yeah, your premises. Your insane premises that you don't violate conservation laws by having photons create radar that goes ahead of them, and somehow they get all that radar stuff back again somehow. Somehow it all condenses back into the photon by some magic power. Oh no, that's not a violation of anything called conservation. No, you can have magical ESP forces and you can just shoot them out and you have an infinite supply of them. No problem. I mean, your theory is the one full of violations of conservation, you idiot.
Very plausible premises.
Right, annihilating particles and then we'll just wait a little while and we'll recreate them over there. Yeah, that's not a violation of conservation or momentum or anything. Violation of conservation of time even. No, we don't give a shit. Amazing asshole. That's his next video, by the way. Why is light slower in glass? Staff answers versus QM. Right? He's gonna quote mine 60 symbols. I remember that 60 symbols video. It was two different guys with two different explanations. I'm sure he's only going to play one guy's explanation.
Almost self-evident, especially in the locality. Yeah? Maybe you could doubt them in the the extreme.
All right, so this is his definitively wrong, complete ambiguity. So this is where he is demonstrating this fucking argument I haven't answered. And I've just answered it again for like the 17th or 18th time. How there's no violation of momentum, violation of conservation of momentum, of speed, of force, of any material or force entity anywhere in my theory. I've stated it overtly. If my theory somehow violates the requirement for what goes in having to be explicitly connected to what goes out, then yes, my theory is rubbish. It's clearly a rule I believe in. You can't have magical little angel poofers out of nowhere. You can't have something happen for no logical reason. And there's nothing in my theory that just happens.
Distances of the universe. But principally, momentum comes from one simple idea that the physics here is the same as the physics over here. Yeah? That is symmetry, translational symmetry. That
Alright, well, so this is his bullshit explanation. I could find every physics professor would say that's not what conservation is. Conservation is you can't make energy out of nothing. Something has to go in. There has to be something in the thing that went into. You can't pull shit out of the bucket that didn't go into the bucket. That's conservation. So this is just a bullshit recontextualization of a definition that's already plenty explicit. And plenty of physicists disagree about the possibility that the rules of the universe could change as you go 5 billion years back in time. That the rules aren't the same. That's not a conservation problem in any way whatsoever. It's just an acknowledgement that the physics can evolve.
Remove the whole universe and redo the experiment, it still gives the same answer. The still formula will work here or over here. Yeah? Whether I translate this or whether I translate the universe. Everything's okie dokie.
And again, there's nothing in my theory that comes anywhere close to violating that rule. So I don't even know why he has this imagined notion that somehow the pile of arrows over here isn't the same as the pile of arrows over here. So this fake defense, what is this made up bullshit that somehow now I've not treated locality correctly? And when he's the one that has the magical let's break conservation laws by saying two photons are somehow connected by some kind of force and therefore are entangled. So how does entanglement not violate conservation law?
Well, neither, right, whatever her name is, she proved this as a mathematical theorem and yielded conservation of momentum. I'll attach videos as usual. In Mendham's video, he rants on, it's nothing to do with geometry, it's contrived. I'll remind him with 2 key videos about why we can't travel the speed of light and a re-explanation about it.
Yeah, you're defending your theory, right? As you accuse mine of not being correct. And I'm saying you haven't demonstrated anything incorrect in my explanation, my opposite explanation, and you certainly have no fucking proof, okay, that when something, a piece of matter approaches the speed of light, it acquires infinite mass. You have absolutely no proof of that. There's no equation that proves that, you insane lunatic. Just as that fucking idiotic equation where they put V1 times V2 divided by the C squared, as that's a proof that that happens? That proves it happens? You fucking insane kook! How does that prove that's fact? I mean, this fucking bullshit. All you have to do is scribble some fucking numbers, contrive a fucking equation, and this asshole says that's the truth then. You contrived an equation, therefore it must be true. I mean, what a pile of shit.
The geometrical principles that yield from the propositions of the axioms of...
yeah, the axioms of Huygens. The axioms of dark matter. I mean, fuck you.
General relativity. It didn't work the other way. They didn't make a...
of general relativity. So now he's brought up general relativity. He spent the whole beginning of this video saying general relativity is rubbish. Okay, it's special relativity that's the game. Okay, that's the only thing that's good. The general relativity is nonsense and bullshit and horse shit. Okay, and now he uses general relativity as evidence of something. I mean, the duplicity, the hypocrisy just goes on and on and on.
You didn't contrive a formula to fit. Yeah, that's very hard. You'd have to guess, and there'd be lots of people.
No, it's very easy, as it was demonstrated in the video. It's very easy to contrive a formula. You just put V1 times V2 divided by C squared in the formula, 1 plus that, and you've contrived a solution. Completely contrived.
Guessing wrong and in the notebooks, and you'd be able to prove that quite easily if they guessed it. Yeah? You can see the development of the mathematics yielding.
You can prove it quite easily by what? Moving a piece of matter the speed of light. Oh, yes, sure you can. Well, they've actually done that to some extent, you know, in accelerators, and no infinite mass starts showing up.
Formulas from the principles, not the other way around. Right? And you don't even understand the formula in front of you.
I do understand it, and I do understand what it was, a contrivance. We have to stop V from going the speed of light. We'll do it with a gimmick. And it's that fucking obvious. Not with a fact, with a gimmick. And he claims that's good math. It's a complete contrivance.
Let's get cracking. Right, here we have it. Conservation of momentum. Take 1.
Alright, so he has the imbecile contrivance right here. So, alright, number 1, V doesn't exist. There's no V total. There's no such thing. Nothing travels this speed. Nothing. And he says that has momentum. That thing that isn't moving has momentum.
Go spaceship. And we say it has the momentum of whatever. Yeah? 10. Okay? And this is a thought experiment in which we can clearly reason how we lose momentum. Right? Because I just make the numbers easier. We could say it has some other number like, 10,300.
Yeah, no, by this equation, how it loses momentum is merely by passing something. Something passes by, it loses momentum. Yeah. Oh, that's so conservational. Oh, maybe it isn't.
27, yeah, which includes the spaceship, but we're going to talk about inside the spaceship. There's a little laser, yeah, that's about to shoot out of a hole or a window, yeah, and this part is also travelling in that direction, and we put a ring around this, and this part can be considered to have 10 units of momentum, right? And it's importantly, we mark momentum with a bar of a similar velocity when we're doing it properly as a directional vector quantity. That is to say,
yeah, so he's saying this weighs as much as that, and this is the laser beam, and somehow the weight of the laser has something to do with whether it can shoot straight, and so now we have to put a P with a little bar over it because we're talking about momentum in some abstract sense, in an irrational sense, not in the rational sense. Sure.
V1 equaling 10 in this direction is not equal to some other V of 10 in some other direction. Okay? They're not the same.
They are the same in terms of their momentum. This has 10 in this momentum, and this has 10 in this direction. So, yes, things moving in a different direction can't be identical, sure. But in every other respect, except for their direction, they're identical. Easy.
You could calculate what a resultant might be. If these was
a resultant what? Sorry. A resultant what? The two things become one thing? No, they don't become one thing. They have to hit something, idiot.
forces acting on a body, but they're principally not the same.
Oh, that was clear as mud.
You get that, right?
No, I don't get that. That was just rubbish. Yeah, that's what that was called, rubbish. No real experiment. No real thing. You could have said, look, the two forces hit something. And then explain how the two forces through acceleration are combined into a single vector of the material thing moving now with this momentum. Completely consistent with my theory, by the way.
So here is the classical orthodox, I'll use, because sometimes we use quantum mechanical terms and it's confusing, and Inmendham doesn't really fault if I don't use the word orthodox science. Inmendham gets confused.
Whatever that means. Orthodox, yes, you might as well just call it fundamentalist science, okay? You're just a bunch of Muslims.
Between the modes of my argument and discourse, when I'm in a frame talking about his science, wherein he needs a reply on his science, and where I'm talking about orthodox science, he needs a reply.
And this is his argument explaining how I'm wrong, right? How my theory doesn't work. Now, this won't have anything to do with how my theory doesn't work. This will just have to do with him explaining how he can make this fake experiment in a fake dimension at a fake speed. This won't have anything to do with anything real, like a guy riding 30 miles an hour on a bicycle or something. He won't use a real analogy.
That meets and applies to those comments on orthodox science. Merely saying, no, it's not like that, this is the way it is not meeting the point of an...
It's not my obligation. My obligation is merely to explain, okay, phenomenon that's observed. And I can do that. And you're claiming I can't do that. And I'm asking you, I'm pleading with you to provide evidence that I can't do that. Where are you doing that in this fucking piece of shit of a video?
Not criticizing in meeting. It isn't a criticism of orthodox science, because it isn't meeting a point of orthodox science with accept, no, you're wrong. Okay, so that's why I've...
Again, that's not what's taken place. I've demonstrated how your science, your orthodoxy, publishes insanely insipid science. 25% margins of error. Photographs that don't even match in any way whatsoever the text in the article.
This usage of the term orthodox science, which includes relativity and quantum mechanics.
What relativity?
Right. So this is orthodox science picture of the release of one of those photons. Yeah?
So now we're talking about two incredibly complex pieces of matter, right? We're talking about, we're back to the apple is to the earth as an atom is to an apple. So we're talking about zillions and zillions and zillions of electrons and protons. And what he says happens when something goes in and something comes out. He's not going to explain how it goes through all those zillions of electrons and how what he thinks went in wasn't exactly what he thought it was, and what went out wasn't exactly what he thinks it is either.
We think it's moving. In fact, we perceive it. If we released it from back here, we would see it moving at 90 degrees. We would perceive it moving at 90 degrees, and all the while, it still has...
So now he's going all the way back to the stupid, idiotic, half the speed of light idiotic crap videos that we did a dozen videos on this fucking subject, and now he's bringing it up again as he has some sort of evidence that when you shoot a laser, the beam really comes out crooked. You can't shoot it perpendicular. If you shoot it perpendicular, it misses the hole because the hole's moving half the speed of light. So he doesn't even have in here any of the proper scenario that he's talking about. Obviously, if this is going 10 miles an hour, this laser beam ain't going to have much trouble getting across that distance long before the hole gets out of the way. So, we already went through this over and over again. So this is where he says I'm wrong, is that he has proof of what happens in spaceships going 3/4 of the speed of light, and therefore he can say my theory doesn't fit because he knows for sure what happens at 3/4 the speed of light. That's the flaw in my theory. It doesn't account for his fantasies about what happens at 3/4 of the speed of light when you move matter that quickly.
Add a component of momentum in the direction of travel. It has to, because this number, remember it was 10, it has to be conserved. So we eject the photon, and really, and it has, whilst travelling in this direction, at the speed of light, at c, yeah? Given.
So we shot it this way, and it traveled this way. And that's conservation.
That photon, its momentum, its total momentum, is given by h over lambda. Yeah. What really this.
Okay, so I have to accept his premise that photons have this h over lambda thing. Like somehow photons give a shit about their frequency. The ton part. No, they don't. The only thing that gives a shit about frequency are electrons. That's why we only see a certain part of the visible spectrum. That's why we only see a certain part of the spectrum, is because the electrons are only sensitive to a certain spectrum of light. And the other frequencies it doesn't receive. It doesn't interact with in any kind of electrical way.
Means is that the frequency of that photon has either increased or decreased, however it works.
Okay, so now we're increasing the frequency of the photon too. So, and again, changing the frequency by his theory means I've somehow made it more energetic. So merely by taking three photons, I mean three things moving through space, and again, this proves me wrong somehow. So because my theory, yes, doesn't do what his idiotic theory does, somehow my theory's wrong, right? And if I convert those three things into this, he says this has more momentum. It's still just three things. No, there's no extra momentum. There's just more capacity to affect an electron because of the way electrons are what they're sensitive to. But it has nothing to do with it being explicitly more powerful.
Seen in the conservation principle is that